The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.
For over a year now, right-wingers have been absolutely obsessed with Benghazi. You would almost think that from this point forward, 9/11 will be when we talk about Benghazi, not about the 9/11 attacks in New York City, just blocks from our studios here. And there's this incredible thing that's going on, as Richard Pullman writes on Newsworks, which is that if you watched 60 Minutes the other day, you might have noticed that there was a very short apology that happened at the very end of the show, which basically was admitting, 60 Minutes admitting that a story they ran about Benghazi, one of the main stories that right-wingers pointed to talk about how evil President Obama was in terms of Benghazi and how he had mishandled it, was a bogus story. If you haven't followed it, I will tell you what Richard Pullman wrote. If you haven't tracked the 60 Minute story and then the story about the story, this is the story. Correspondent Lara Logan hinged her report on the purported adventures of British security contractor Dylan Davies, who appeared on camera under a pseudonym. Davies was billed as the first eyewitness to talk about the lax security at the diplomatic compound in Benghazi where the attack took place. And he said that he was compelled to ride to the rescue, scaling a 12-foot wall, bashing a terrorist with a rifle butt, later sneaking into a Benghazi hospital and seeing the dead body of U.S. Ambassador Chris Stevens. Conservatives went crazy. It turns out, though, that he was never actually there. That's the long and short of it. 60 Minutes has, after a lot of pressure, admitted to this. They ginned up this phony story, and on October 31st, the Washington Post disclosed that Davies, in the immediate aftermath of the Benghazi attacks, filed an incident report with his security employer, Blue Mountain, saying he had been nowhere near the compound, never scaled a wall, or rifle butted a guy in the head, never saw Ambassador Stevens' body. Instead, he spent most of the night at his Benghazi beachside villa. 60 Minutes has apologized for the story. Conservatives are silent, Lewis. All of a sudden, we hear nothing from the right, who has been apoplectic over the Benghazi story for over a year at this point, something like 14 months now, about, oh, wait a second, most of our outrage was sparked by a story that wasn't even true. Are we ever going to hear from the Benghazyists about this?
I really doubt it. It still happened, right? So they still think that Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama, whoever, willfully and knowingly decided to let it happen.
They
and
still
that's
think
that's
that.
going to be their story.
They still think that, Lewis. However, the primary evidence of the so-called lax security has just been debunked as in made up, straight made up by Dylan Davies. So it's much harder to make that case believable now.
It is. We realize that. But do you think that that is going to stop anyone who has only been talking about Benghazi for a year? I mean, really, is that going to change? No.
I don't really know. I mean, I hope so. It's not, I don't have overwhelming evidence that that's the case. Those who want to believe these stories seem to do so even in the absence of evidence. Typically, their standard, Lewis, is unless you can prove to me beyond a shadow of a doubt that my story didn't and couldn't have happened, I'm going to continue believing it, as is often the case with conspiracy theorists. So you're right, this may not really do anything for some of the more extreme conspiracy theorists, but the more moderate individuals who think it was grossly mishandled, based in great part on the story of Dylan Davies, we would hope they would change their minds at least a little bit.
I'll tell you what was mishandled. It was the response by Hillary Clinton and the administration to this incident. That was what was mishandled.
There's a historic pro-choice bill being introduced in Congress. Laura Bassett wrote about this on the Huffington Post. And we've been following the 3-year wave of legislative attacks on abortion, on family planning services, much of it based on religion and on trying to raise money for the most extreme Republican candidates. And there are some Democratic lawmakers who are today trying to go on the offensive with this historic bill, which would straight up make it illegal for states to individually chip away at women's reproductive rights. Lewis, we talked about the situation in Texas, right, where there was initially a proposal to limit access to abortions, and then on an initial appeal, it was determined that those restrictions were unconstitutional, but then that was appealed, and then the restrictions are back on. And we have this horrible back and forth that really puts women and a lot of these providers in total limbo as to what it is that they can actually do in Texas. Richard Blumenthal is going to introduce the Women's Health Protection Act of 2013, joined by Barbara Boxer, Tammy Baldwin, and members of Congress, including Marcia Fudge, Judy Chu, Lois Frankel. This would prohibit states from passing these targeted regulation of abortion provider laws. They're also called TRAP laws. And those individually put in these restrictions on abortion clinics. They make it so that women have to have ultrasounds that wouldn't be medically necessary. They create all sorts of barriers. So this would not, Lewis, retroactively make the bills that have already been passed at the state level against the law, but they would create a legal basis on which those could be individually appealed. And that's a good thing. Putting aside preventing more of these bills from being proposed and happening, creating a legal method to appeal those could be huge.
Right. That's going to be big, especially in this state. And I hope that's what happens.
Yeah. The issue, of course, is that while this may pass in the Senate, it could be tough to get it through in the House, which is controlled by Republicans. What we really need here is to be working together to reduce the number of abortions that happen. It's so amazing to me, Lewis, because Democrats, Republicans, liberals, conservatives, we all want to reduce the number of abortions. It just seems that we aren't agreeing about what makes that happen. Abstinence-only sex education doesn't reduce the number of abortions. Making it really difficult to go to a clinic and get an abortion doesn't reduce the number of abortions. We want to reduce that number, and the way to do that is with logical and comprehensive sex education and access to contraception that is affordable. That's what we need, and we can reduce. I hate abortions, Lewis. I wish they were never necessary. They need to be legal. Women need to have access to safe abortions, and it is a procedure that is incredibly safe when done in a medical facility. Why can't we all move forward on reducing the number of abortions?
Because something like, 30 to 40% of the country thinks that if you teach a young child about sex, they will start having it and their life will be ruined immediately. And
Right.
that's, I don't know, maybe it's because those people were never educated properly. I don't know, but we need to see eye to eye on that.
This idea of any group being a pro-abortion group is completely bogus. I have never met a women's rights or pro-choice advocate or activist who was looking to have more abortions take place. Let's prevent them from even being necessary, but conservatives are getting in the way of that too. It's truly sad. Cannabis oil, Lewis. Doctors in Utah say yes to cannabis oil for kids medicinally. There's an interesting article in the Salt Lake Tribune. 3 doctors in Utah, including University of Utah's top pediatric neurologist, are coming out in support of families being provided access to a cannabis extract that has been proven successful at stopping seizures. This is a marijuana derivative. Quote, I would like to express my strong belief that cannabidiol-based oils, referred to here in Utah as Alephsia, should be available as soon as possible to children with severe epilepsy. The substance is not psychoactive. It is not hallucinogenic. It contains less THC than do other materials that can be already legally purchased in Utah, and it has zero potential for abuse. The letter was signed by 2 other pediatric neurologists at the university. However, Lewis, Utah doesn't permit the use of medicinal marijuana, so families have tough choices to make. They either have to relocate to somewhere like Colorado, where you can have access to this type of medication, or you can delay treatment, try to push for a change in the state law. This may not even go far enough, in the sense that children with epilepsy shouldn't be the only ones in Utah who can benefit from medical marijuana. Cancer patients, those in severe pain, there are, and I hate to use this term, Lewis, but it actually applies, there are any number of conditions that would benefit from access to medicinal marijuana and related products. And Utah's legislature needs to get on the ball.
Yeah, I think Utah is one of those states that might be a holdout in the long run in terms of marijuana legalization and things like that. But unfortunate for families who would benefit from this type of thing.
We need to legalize pot, tax it, and have the post office deliver it. We'd be hitting like 4 or 5 different issues, Lewis. It would just be amazing. And people love to listen to medical experts generally, unless they disagree with your political opinions. We have doctors here, reputable doctors, saying that we need this. We have to be doing something, Lewis.
I think you may have just found a way to save the U.S. Postal Service too.
That's
honestly.
exactly right.
Yeah.
Have the post office deliver it. And by the way, I know that the Postal Service is only in trouble because of this absurd stipulation that they pre-fund retirement accounts 75 years ahead of time. We don't even have time to get into that today, but I've covered it in the past, so please check that out. The first new bird flu case in humans has been confirmed. Panic is starting. Time magazine is reporting on this. The latest version is called H6N1. And this is the first time that this particular strain of bird flu has jumped to humans. Flu researchers are particularly wary of birds. And every time this happens, Lewis, we do see a lot of panic. There have been other strains, including H7N9 last spring, where China reported that it had jumped to humans. Initially, there was a lot of concern about an epidemic pandemic. Ultimately, it didn't turn out that way. What's the right reaction when these things happen?
Well, what's the right reaction from people or from media, from the media being responsible?
Well, I'm sure one is related to the other.
I guess. I mean, of course it has to be mentioned, but every time it is, especially when Time is reporting on it, people freak out.
Right.
And it's usually completely unnecessary. Look what happened with swine flu. I mean, that was full-blown chaos in terms of media coverage and fear, but it was handled and it wasn't that big of a deal.
Yeah, I'm kind of split on this because on the one hand, public health experts are being very specific and they're saying, it's true, we don't know how easily H6N1 could spread in people, but the fact that it was bird flu that mutated and infected people, that's concerning, and I understand that. However, when you look at the World Health Organization estimates about influenza flu deaths, in 2009, for example, the estimate was between 250,000 and 500,000 people worldwide will die from some version of the flu. So we just need to remember that broadly speaking, flu kills many people every year on this planet. And when we look at the potential for H6N1 or one of these other strains, let's just contextualize that, right? Because when you start hearing, oh, this could kill 50,000 people, we don't need to say who cares about 50,000 people. We don't need to pretend like 50,000 people is nothing. But we need to contextualize it and look at the number of people that already die every year from the flu and say, more broadly speaking, what can be done rather than a freak out about one specific strain. That doesn't mean there might not be a strain that is particularly deadly.
Right. We also need to realize that I'm assuming the majority of the people who die from this have compromised immune systems for one reason or another. So that's something we also need to consider.
On today's bonus show, we will talk about an Ontario man who is charged with shooting himself in the buttocks. This is quite a story. We'll also talk about PG, you know those ratings on movies, PG-13, R, etc. PG-13 movies actually have more gun violence than R-rated movies. Is the rating system itself not representative of what we would want to prevent children from seeing, or at least be there as adults to curate when they are watching? We'll also talk about more insane stunts from Venezuela's president. Get the bonus show, davidpakman.com/membership, support our show, get the bonus show, and lots of other great member benefits.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com. Welcome back to the David Pakman Show.
Our membership program is made possible in part by liberalbias.com. Cutting-edge research shows that President Obama causes lightning, cats, and suicide. Find out more about unbiased research like that at liberalbias.com. Today's new member of the day is Elaine Oma. Elaine, thanks for being a David Pakman Show member. You too can join Elaine by going to our website, davidpakman.com/membership. Pat Robertson was asked one of these questions that comes into his show, and it was, my son says he's gay. What should I do? Here is Pat Robertson's reaction.
Hey, this is Fields, who says, my 16-year-old son says he's gay. What do I do?
Well, Ava, I think you need to pray for him, and I think you need to counsel with him and see, is there really a biological thing going on? Or has he been influenced? Has a coach
well, in today's
him?
world, there's so much that's...
Well, I know, and the whole idea of these kids are in a formative state, and sure, they may have some attractions to people of the same sex. I mean, they don't know what they're doing. They're teenagers. So some, they go for the opposite sex. Some are attracted to one another, and there are a lot of things that happen. So don't write him off. And I think what you need to do is talk to him, counsel with him, and be understanding. Mm-hmm. All right.
Okay, so we have to analyze this piece by piece. First of all, the kid never said anything about being abused, molested, etc., just that he's gay. And it's actually not true that there is causation between being sexually abused or molested and being gay. You can look at information from the National Health and Social Life Survey. You can look at Haidt, Janice, Jefferson, Moberly, McFadden. All have studied this. Abuse does not cause homosexuality. And for those who will say, well, isn't there correlation? That may be the case, but just because there is correlation, that doesn't mean that being abused causes you to be gay. There may be other factors which place gay individuals in situations where they are more likely to be abused. So that's number one. But number two, how is praying for the gay kid a solution, Lewis? Like what will happen if the mom prays for the gay kid?
Good question. I don't know. I guess it might get rid of that gay demon that's in him. Praying fixes pretty much everything, I guess. If you ask Pat Robertson, you just need to make sure you do it the right way, right?
Because when he's been asked, well, we prayed, but the good thing didn't happen or the bad thing happened, you either weren't praying hard enough or you looked like you were praying on the outside, but you were kind of just going through the motions and really you weren't really praying. You didn't really want it. Can you imagine how many lives have been ruined, young and old, by following this particular brand of Christianity and really extremist brands of all the major religions?
Yeah, it's most of these people never realize that it's ruined their life or their relationship with their family or any number of situations, I guess. It's pretty sad.
So after Pat Robertson was asked, my son says he's gay, what should I do? Brian Fisher on American Family Association Radio was asked to respond to Pat Robertson's reaction. We've got like a chain of homophobia being analyzed. It's amazing really what's happening. And David Badash over at the New Civil Rights Movement wrote about this. I'm going to play the clip. This was a caller who called into Brian Fisher and said, hey, what do you think about Pat Robertson's reaction and what would you do if you had a kid that was gay? Check it out.
I'm a parent. I've raised 2 kids to adulthood. Did I approve of every decision that my children made when they were in my household or every decision they've made as adults? Absolutely not. Did I talk to them about some of those decisions that I thought were self-destructive? Absolutely. Did I appeal to them to make different and better decisions? Absolutely. Did I ever for one moment of time stop loving them unconditionally. Absolutely not. In fact, it was my unconditional love for them that prompted me to appeal to them to make life-affirming choices. And that's exactly what I would do if one of my children came out as homosexual. I would love them unconditionally. I would appeal to them to make different choices with their sexuality. I would appeal to them not to go down that road because it's a road of destruction and death. But I would love them unconditionally. Would I toss them out of my life? Absolutely no way, under no circumstances. Does that give you an answer?
Okay, so you watch this, and as our friend David Badash writes, maybe you say, well, even though he would try to counsel his kid not to choose gayness as a lifestyle, as absurd as that sounds, he would still love his kid unconditionally. So that seems like that's great, right? That's kind of all the kid needs. Not really. It turns out that gay and straight teen suicide attempts are higher in conservative regions. There's a groundbreaking study published in the Journal of Pediatrics, which shows that gay, lesbian, and bisexual teens are 5 times more likely to attempt suicide than their heterosexual peers. That part we knew. But it also shows that straight teens are 9% more likely to attempt suicide when living in the most conservative areas compared to teens living in the most liberal areas. So I guess it is good that Brian Fisher says he would unconditionally love his kids even if they were gay, but is unconditional love as an abstract concept valuable if at its core it is still rejecting who the kid is, knowing that that has a significant detrimental effect on children?
I think I've been a witness to situations where parents love their children but still can't accept something about them, or there's some type of rift there.
Yeah.
And I think it's damaging in just about every case.
Interesting. So, and is that specifically with homosexuality or with other things?
No, with many things I've noticed. Yeah, it's I think it can happen in a lot of different situations, and it's never a good thing.
Okay, one other thing. Last night I was flipping around my TV and I came across a show called Preachers of L.A. The show is outrageous and I'm completely sucked in. I'm going to be watching more episodes. It is unbelievable. It's a show where they follow around 6 different preachers in the Los Angeles area. Most of them have a ton of money. They drive flashy cars. They are these kind of almost televangelist type preachers. Check out a little preview of the show here.
Forgive us of every sin, sins of omission, sins of commission, in the name of Jesus.
Every chain can be broken. Every shackle can be broken. You're part of the family of God.
God, we ask and we believe for your healing power and grace to touch his body and make him whole.
Just bow your head and say, Lord Jesus, forgive me for my sins.
Forgive me for my sins.
I believe in my heart
that
Jesus Christ died for my sins. In Jesus' name, I'm saved.
I'm saved.
Can we be real about God just for a moment? He wants you to be healed. He wants you well. He wants you prosper. Come on, say amen to this.
My name is Bishop Ron Gibson.
I'm Bishop Clarence E. McClendon.
My name is Dietrich Haddon.
I'm Wayne Chaney.
My name is Jay Hazlett.
My name is Noel Jones.
As I watched it, I was just mystified by the things that were said. People talk about how God came to them and told them to do certain things. When one of the pastors who has a kid and he's counseling him, he says, listen, I think God is using your life really well. When one of the kids who wants to be a singer asks his pastor dad whether he has a chance at being a successful worship singer, the dad says, chance has nothing to do with it. It's all how God wants to use you. They're wearing the white suits, the expensive cars. There's one scene where I guess one of the members of Korn, Lewis, the guy who goes by the name Head, is like a big Christian, and he hangs out with one of these pastors and they talk about being tattooed, but being Christian. It's amazing to me. They seem almost possessed, even in casual conversation. But the most amazing thing about it to me, Lewis, was that these are clearly very smart individuals, excellent speakers. I mean, oratory skills that really are to be envied. The amount of good that they could be doing with those skills, instead of just getting people to cry and faint and put their hands up and scream hallelujah and give them tons of money, by the way, the amount of good, these guys could be some of the best teachers in the world. This is the level that they are on in terms of speaking skills and skills of persuasion. But instead, I mean, they're making a ton of money. Maybe that's why they do it. They're doing this instead.
Maybe they think they are doing a world of good. Maybe they think they are truly helping people. And I'm sure there are some people that they help, even though those people may be deluded as a result of that help. Well, it can be a powerful thing. And I'm sure they do help people. Watching the trailer, this show really made it seem like it was an unbiased view of these guys, maybe even trying to expose, their lives, expose them and show what happens behind the scenes and kind of make them look a little more human. It does look pretty interesting. Yeah,
from the episode I saw, it wasn't really issuing any kind of critique. You had to kind of on your own decide to critique it because it's done in this way that's very flashy and kind of sensationalist. I encourage you to check out the show. Join us on Facebook, facebook.com/David Pakman Show. We will take a break. Next, we will talk about unemployment. Is it bad for the economy? Unemployment insurance, unemployment benefits. Your voicemails are coming up. A lot more. Glad you were with us on this Thursday.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com. Welcome back to the David Pakman Show.
I'm joined today by Maurice Emsalem. He's the director of the Access and Opportunity Program at the National Employment Law Project. Maurice, I was just reading about the 2 million, more than 2 million actually, unemployed workers who are going to be losing their jobless aid early in 2014 if there isn't a motion by Congress to allow the unemployed to continue receiving those benefits at the federal level. What really is at stake here in terms of what Congress needs to do?
Well, as you probably know, we're dealing with still a very severe unemployment crisis in the United States. We have more long-term unemployment than we've ever had in the nation's history, going all the way back to the Depression. So currently there are about 4 million people who are unemployed, who've been looking for work and are still unemployed after 6 months of their job search. So and that's you can't even compare that to prior recession levels. It's 3 times more than the number and the percent of unemployed that existed before the recession. And going back as far as 1948, there were never more than 26% of the unemployed who were out of work more than 6 months. So we still have this huge crisis, even though the recession is technically more than 4 years over, and that's because of such limited and stagnant job growth. So a lot of people are still relying on their limited unemployment benefits. The average benefit runs about $270 a week just to get by. And these are people who, because they've been unemployed so long, they're stretched to the limit financially. So their benefits are absolutely critical. I mean, without that $270 a week, it's very difficult for most of these workers to even put food on the table. So yes, the program, it's called Emergency Unemployment Compensation. The program expires the end of the year. It's got what we call a hard cutoff, which means there's no phase out. When December 31st hits, 1.3 million people will immediately lose every penny of their benefits. And then if you go out, if we add on the number of people who would qualify over the next 3 months, the first 3 months of the new year, That gets you to 2 million. If you count out the next 6 months into the new year, that gets you to 3 million workers who will have no extra federal benefits to get by.
I think that there's often discussions in corporate American media about unemployment insurance that don't really address the most important issues, in the sense that there's often discussions really about two things. Number one, whether the government is wasting money with unemployment insurance. And number two, the question of whether unemployment insurance encourages people simply to not work. So let's take them one at a time. First, as you stated, unemployment insurance benefits are not significant for most people. As you said, the average benefit is $270. So while it can be the difference between losing your home and not, being able to eat that week and not, the idea that everybody's just hanging around collecting unemployment checks because they don't want to work is not supported at all by the numbers, is it?
That's absolutely right, and it's really difficult. It's heart-wrenching to see workers portrayed in that light when they are really the victims of this recession. As I mentioned, there's huge competition for jobs right now. There are way more people looking for a very small number of jobs that are available. So the fact is, people are not hanging out on their benefits, and the benefits are not a whole lot to begin with. So there's not a whole lot, there's very little incentive to do so. But yeah, what the research says, in contrast to what you hear from critics of the program, is that actually it has the effect of encouraging workers to stay in the job market, which is what we want. We want people to be looking for work. If it wasn't for the benefits, what the research says is more people would be dropping out of the labor market and not looking for work. So in fact, it's the opposite. The research indicates that unemployment benefits help people stay in the job market and continue working.
Okay, that's really interesting, because I wasn't familiar with that last part, which is that not having the benefit of unemployment insurance might actually get you to be so in such a position that you stop looking for work altogether. So that's kind of the second thing I mentioned. The first issue was this idea of the economic impact of paying out unemployment, and we've talked to several economists over the years, and it seems that when you critically think about this, it's actually hugely stimulative from the point of view of the government to invest in paying unemployment benefits, in the sense that if you are receiving unemployment benefits, you likely don't have tons of extra money to save, meaning the multiplier, the economic multiplier of every dollar received in unemployment benefits is very, very high. All that money is going to be spent. It actually supports private business, does it not?
That's exactly right. The multiplier is about $2 of economic activity for every dollar in unemployment benefits circulating in the economy. And then that also, and as you mentioned, that's money that's spent on immediate goods and services in local communities. The Economic Policy Institute actually recently ran some numbers to indicate that all that economic activity actually helps produce about 300,000 jobs, given the size of the program right now.
So then let's get to kind of what I think is a relevant issue, which is, once we can pull back from the broad statements of unemployment benefits are bad spending from the point of view of the federal government, and number two, that those who are unemployed are staying unemployed just because they want to keep collecting benefits. Once we can kind of rule out those two things, which we know aren't true, do you think that right now the balance is being appropriately struck, taking into consideration the economy that we have in terms of how long individuals who are unemployed can receive benefits, and the amount of the benefits to have the strongest effect of getting people to apply for jobs? Or could those logistics be tweaked such that the program would be more effective?
Well, right now, the average worker is unemployed about 8 months, and the maximum benefits that most workers are collecting now is in that neighborhood. It's about a year's worth of benefits, a little bit less. That's the maximum that most people are collecting. So obviously, you want some some leeway between the average and the maximum that folks can collect. So, of course, it would be helpful for the economy, for the workers, if we had a more robust program. But, we have to also be aware of the politics of what it takes to get this thing reauthorized. And it's not easy. I mean, as your viewers know, probably as well as anybody, Congress, it's pretty tough to get Congress to do anything these days, especially pass legislation that's going to help workers who are, dealing with the effects of the recession. So, we would like to see this program reauthorized. That's what we'd like to see. It took a big hit the last go around when they reauthorized the program in January. They did cut benefits, especially for some of the states with the highest levels of unemployment. And as a result, there are about half as many people collecting benefits now compared to when the program was last reauthorized at the beginning of the year. So yeah, I mean, it's not a generous program, but given the politics, I think what we'd like to see is reauthorization of the current program.
All right, we've been speaking with Maurice Emsalem with the National Employment Law Project. Really great to speak with you. We're going to keep following the story.
Okay, thank you, David.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com. The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.
A Southwest Airlines Boeing 737 plummeted in midair. According to ABC 11, the pilot of a Southwest Airlines flight headed to Raleigh-Durham Airport went on the loudspeaker and told passengers their plane was going down, according to a woman on the flight. He said, "We were going down." Everybody else was looking around like, is this a joke? Is he serious? People started texting and trying to call their loved ones to say they were going to be in an accident. The plane nosedived thousands of feet in the air and eventually actually balanced out and leveled out. And the plane eventually made an emergency landing at Raleigh-Durham Airport 2 minutes ahead of schedule. So what happened? Southwest Airlines said Flight 3426 experienced a maintenance alert as they were on descent into Raleigh-Durham Airport. The captain declared an emergency, descended to 25,000 feet, where the alert was resolved. Through the remainder of the descent, the flight was normal, landed uneventfully, and was not met by emergency vehicles. Some people are really angry that by "we're going down," the implication was we're going all the way down to the ground. Others say maybe that's actually what he thought at the time, but then managed to level out. I think most people are probably pretty glad that they didn't go all the way down to the ground in that nosedive.
Yeah, when I read this, my first thought was that in trying to take evasive maneuvers and manage the plane physically as a pilot, he probably just wasn't thinking and didn't choose the right words while trying to simultaneously talk to all the people on the plane.
Right.
So I assume there was a change in pressure. He had to drop to equalize things or as a precautionary measure. So I think it just got a little jumbled in his head and he said the wrong thing.
There have been a total of 72 crashes involving the Boeing 737-700 out of over 175 million flights. This makes it one of the safest planes ever made. I'm actually flying, I think, on a 737 next month. Don't know if it's the 700 or not. Have flown on those many, many times. I don't think this incident will make me particularly nervous. I don't think it should.
No, why would it? I mean, you've been on so many flights, as have I. But for a lot of people who just have a natural fear of flying, I'm sure this would terrify them.
I don't know if you read Calvin and Hobbes when you were younger. I read every single Calvin and Hobbes comic. I still have all the books. And tomorrow there's a movie opening, a documentary called Dear Mr. Watterson, referring to Bill Watterson, who was the cartoonist that drew Calvin and Hobbes. It opens in some major cities, but it will also be available for streaming online starting tomorrow. I really think I'm going to buy this. It's I'm just fascinated by Calvin and Hobbes. When I see, sometimes on Reddit, people will post a Calvin and Hobbes that's particularly relevant today. I think it's incredible that Bill Watterson is only 55 now. Calvin and Hobbes now was it's been done for many years. There haven't been new ones for I don't even want to say how long because I don't remember. And Bill Watterson is still only 55, meaning that it was a pretty young guy who drew this comic strip, Lewis.
Yeah, it has been around for a long time, and I never really got into it. I know you've been a fan and you have some of those books, but it's, I don't know, sounds like an interesting documentary, I guess.
Yeah, I look forward to it. Send me your Calvin and Hobbes stories. I actually showed, my sister was over at my place a couple months ago, and she's 9 now, and she grabbed one of them and said, "What's this?" and just started reading it and got instantly sucked in. I think I was probably, I think she was 8 at the time. I was probably around the same age when I started reading Calvin and Hobbes, and it's amazing because if I just page through them today, there are a lot of things that as an 8-year-old you don't realize when you're reading it that are really jokes meant more for adults. And it's like reading a brand new comic when you start getting those things. That kind of happens with movies too that you might have seen as a kid.
And a lot of those children's cartoon shows that have a lot of adult humor tossed in.
Let's go to some of your voicemails. 219-2-DAVID-P is our number. Here is the occasional positive voicemail that we get.
Hey, David, it's Cecil calling you from Century City, California.
Yes.
And I just want to say that you're awesome, and you're one of those real progressive voices out there, and there's just no other alternatives, really. Ever since Keith Olbermann left MSNBC, you've been the only real voice out there, other than TYT. All right. Keep up the good work, David, and you're just awesome.
All right. Very nice voicemail. Thank you for the positive voicemail. We're doing what we can. And here is one more voicemail. Take a listen.
Hey, Dave. I just watched your Obamacare Navigators Caught on video, and, well, I know from personal experience, I was on food stamps for many years, and to tell you the truth, the people that helped me out bent the rules a little bit for me as well, and gave me probably about $50 more than I would have had per month. It was not enough for me. I still had a lot of trouble making ends meet, and these people know this. They know this, and it's probably the same thing with Obamacare. The majority of these people, they'll get better coverage than they had, but it won't be enough for many of these people. So
yeah, there's people who will justify the kind of bending the rules because they say the benefits as they are aren't even that good. So I find it kind of like morally acceptable to bend the rules, and others will say it's not acceptable. That's actually not the issue. The issue with the Obama Navigator fraud, supposed fraud, was is that unique to Obamacare, or does it happen with any federal program? And as I thought yesterday, and as has been confirmed by this voicemail, Lewis, every single federal program, any program where there are income limits or whatever, is subject to people lying. That is not at all unique to Obamacare.
No, not at all. And of course, there are going to be people who are sympathetic to you and try to help you. That's a human thing, I guess.
On today's bonus show, we will talk about a Canadian man charged after shooting himself in the butt. What does that feel like? I don't know. We'll talk about it. We'll also talk about PG-13 movies having more gun violence than R-rated movies and more stunts from Venezuela's president. We are mostly funded by you, individual members. Go to davidpakman.com/membership to become a supporter today. You will get the bonus show, a commercial-free podcast feed that you can put on your mobile device, iPad, computer, whatever you want, with the commercial-free podcast and the bonus show. And as of yesterday, because of audience popular demand, Lewis, the full 1-hour commercial-free TV show, not those 3-minute clips from YouTube, now available in high definition. We had a request. The request was echoed, and we figured out a way to make it happen in only 24 hours, Lewis. We made it happen. It is incredible. davidpakman.com/membership. Your support funds this program. I would love it if you were a member come Monday, which will be our next program. Thanks for watching. See you then.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.